live. All right.
Okay, the Freethinkers radio show is next. Okay.
Yeah, depending on your ear and whatnot, certain things you might, some people will be into it, some people won't. It's one of them things.
It wasn't me this time. It wasn't me this time. It was David.
That's only because you started up early.
I started,
She started early.
because I can't control my volume unless I'm on a video. You need to do what? Hey, Auntie. Auntie B.
I just sent the link to you, Professor.
Okay. Oh, yeah, here we go.
Hello, Darren. Hello, Kevin. Hello, David. Hello, Auntie.
Okay. Thank
Thank you for joining.
Here we go. Freethinkers Radio.
I hear some echoing. Does everybody else?
Yeah, I'm laughing at you, and
What's
I think
up,
it's from.
Spreak?
I need to turn my phone down, don't I?
Yes, everyone, please turn your phones down. Auntie chiming in from California. Hey, Auntie. La, da, 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 da. La, da, 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 da.
What's going on? Freethinkers radio show. We about to
An associate professor of economics at USC.
Hi, how you doing?
Welcome. And we also have Kevin Rasberry in the house, owner of, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Principal consultant at Legacy Ed.
Hey, what's up?
Hey,
absolutely.
thank y'all for joining us. We're going to be talking about racism.
That's right.
Part 1.
Let's do it.
Economic empowerment.
We're doing it. We're starting
Economic colonization versus integration. Y'all share this video and stay tuned. Freethinkers Radio.
Be really
That's
interesting. Really interesting if everybody could see through everybody else's eyes. This is Through Your Eyes by Britt Nicole.
Yeah, show 62, man. Why wouldn't we? Right? We've ducked it. We've dodged it.
And
We've just,
I'm about to
We've
say,
been dipping our toes in the
a
pool.
little toe dip. We're going to go ahead and
we got our feet wet.
dive in.
Up, Sierra?
Have this big diverse crowd and we don't even,
I thought
Let's go ahead and do
this
it.
problem.
Auntie said,
I know, right? Didn't we solve this problem?
I thought
We
we
got an hour.
can y'all hear us
Long
on
time.
Facebook?
Right. See, we got an hour. I know.
Can everyone hear us on Facebook?
Pretty sure, right?
I hope so. Otherwise,
I would say, yeah, that's a yes to the hearing on Facebook situation. We doing this.
Hey, Denise. Hey, Sierra. Hey, Lakeisha.
What up,
Hello.
Lakeisha?
Why you?
Sierra said the sound came in late.
Oh, okay.
It's all good. We got it worked out now.
All right.
He came and worked it out.
You can hear. Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
ear, Lakeisha.
Thank you much. Thank you much. Yeah, so get your comments and questions ready. We do have University of South Carolina Professor Bill Hauk in the house. We do have the professional himself, Kevin Rasberry, is in the house.
Y'all hilarious. Y'all hilarious.
Yeah, look, your favorite libertarian's favorite libertarian. William is here.
Maybe favorite's not the word.
The infamous.
So this is what we're about to get into this. Economic empowerment. Support this type of business, that type of business. Support Christian business, support black business, support Irish business. Right? You know, versus being part of a, booming American system. Let's do this.
We're back, and
Yep.
you heard me correctly if you heard the intro. We are talking about racism part 1. We are talking about economic empowerment. We are talking about economic colonization versus integration. Okay? So we're talking about, hey, support this black business. Hey, support this Christian business. Hey, so how does that bring us together as a unit if we're constantly segregating ourselves into little units?
Oh, really? Economically, does it work? Right? Does that even work? I mean, so you talk because we'll just throw this out there so we can get the conversation started with all the facts on the table here. This all got sparked basically at the Black Expo. We were at the Black Expo, and Black Expo was basically, hey, support black business, right? It's not like a tech expo or arts expo or, it's not about your particular sector or maybe a food expo or something like that. No, everybody who does food or any kind of industry at all, if you're black, we want to highlight you and get you supported here at this Black Expo so that we can support our own. Now, does that actually build a community, an economic community, when you're in the middle of a booming American economy, right? So is it effective, right? Is it effective to get your gains off of your own, off of your own sector? Because I've never seen an Asian expo, and they seem to be doing pretty well. I haven't seen a Latino expo. I think they have them though.
They do.
They do.
A lot out west, on the West Coast, they have a lot of them.
Right. Yeah, I've never been to one, but does this work? Like economic sense? We're talking about like what micro versus macroeconomics. Is that what we're talking about? What are we talking about?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're looking at can small businesses make it in, kind of a big pond where there's lots of much larger businesses swimming around and perhaps, swamping them. So I think, that's really the big question here.
Right. So, is it more beneficial to get a black tech company supported, a black app developer supported, or to get it infused into Google? Right, and let it make the gains that Google makes. Well, which one is better for a small business, Kevin?
Repeat that question for me once.
So, is it better to? Are we in a better situation? Because we're still talking about resources for a community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, is that community better supported by, let's say, supporting a? We're talking about black community. If we support a black app developer,
right,
or a person that's looking to open or start their own web search engine, right? Is that better for that community than getting that company to subsidiary under maybe Google or Amazon? So
that's going to look like not just the pipe dream of the community supporting him. Mm-hmm. Is it better? Is his support better with just the community, or is it better with Google? I mean, this is about the survival of small businesses, right?
Right.
And so, do you entrust with the fact that we're the same race? I'm going to get all the support that I need, or do I do the business and have my business survive? And whether that be white, Asian, whoever is your client, because when you become exclusive in business, right? It's just like if I'm a photographer, if I'm a videographer, if I'm doing all this other stuff, and then I decide today I'm just gonna do photography, right? Mm-hmm. I just limited my audience, right? Mm-hmm. By no matter how much money the other audience has, I limited myself by just being a photographer. Mm-hmm. So if I only want to be an app developer in this particular community, this is all I want to work with, then I need to be prepared for what this community gives me or what they don't give me. You know what I mean? Okay. And so it's kind of up to the developer to figure out the survival of his business, or just I want to just be associated with just this community.
Okay, well, that seemed to make common sense, right? So, but I've been seeing the push like this since I was 5 years old. What's the push for then? If that's not the best way to grow a community, because I've heard a lot of and read a lot of articles and stuff where they say the best way to build is from within. That's what they say. But I've never understood that to be the truth when you need as much money as you can to come from every source you can get it from.
I think the beauty of and here's that buzzword again. The beauty of having a free market is that there is no right or wrong way to do a business. Now, there is unhealthy and healthy ways to practice business. There is good business practice versus bad business practice. If someone wants to start a business catering to a small group of people or a core group of people or a market that they know that they can depend on for income, for business, repeat business, they can do that. But the reality is, with a free market, anybody could come in and say, well, we're going to do that, but we're also going to open up our business opportunities to other markets as well, which is what people that are looking to grow want to do naturally. I mean, it's a natural progression in the evolution of business.
Right.
So really, it's a question of, I think it's a question of vision. Do you want to focus on the short term in the sense of like, this is my community, this is what I know I can depend on, these are the businesses, this is my business, or these are my group of businesses, and this is what we can sell, and here's who we can sell it to, because we know we're going to have the best chance of having returns on our business expenditures by doing that? Or do we want to focus on expanding? I mean, I don't think there's necessarily any right or wrong way to do it. There's maybe a wiser way to do it.
Okay, what would the wiser way be?
I mean, obviously you want to do as much business as possible. So like you don't want to limit yourself, but it's just a matter of like what you're comfortable with, I think, personally. I mean,
so David, allow me to be the first to throw the match into the barrel of dynamite.
I was about to go ahead.
So do I only shop black businesses because I'm a black man? Does it matter the value of the business, the customer service, the product? Does any of that matter? Am I only going to buy black because I'm black? Am I only going to be a business that only operates within the black community, even though I have a product that everybody is itching for, right? So do I, because businesses ordinarily, and please help me with this, but businesses normally have a 20-year life cycle, right? Before they really have to start kind of tweaking it. If you look at McDonald's and Burger King, well, these guys go and they change the appearance of it. They change certain things on the menu and try to make it look like they're a whole different company. Right. So with having such a short life cycle, and some are really not that long, 20 years is a long time to be in business. So do I waste that time trying to cater to one market that I don't know what they're going to do? They've shown to be helter-skelter with their support. Or do I go to just market my business to everybody who needs or wants my product, right? We're stuck with that stigma all the time. It doesn't matter how much money I make or how much money I don't have. I still am perceived to have to go to black businesses because I'm a black man, and so that for me, I'm sorry, that's just not how I operate. I'm not going to do that. I think we talked about the example I gave about HBCUs.
Right.
I think that we got to look at how we exclude ourselves when we start fussing about when we're excluded. Now, if you're operating in exclusion, why are you upset when people exclude you from things? We really have to look at where we want to put ourselves in the marketplace. Right. We really got to be serious about that.
I think a lot of times we've excluded ourselves because we've always felt excluded. And we feel like, if we just stay in the black community, and it's a pride thing for one thing, and maybe not, researching and thinking about it, business in that way, the 20-year span and what I can do to make things better. And do I have a product that everybody can partake in? I think a lot of times we just that mentality is there that I'm black, I'm gonna do it myself. I don't need nobody because ain't nobody ever helped me anyways. So I think that that's a part of the issue, the mentality of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think because it doesn't make a lot of sense when we put it all together, and the only way that I can think when I think about how did this start, it had to have been a response, right? Like this, when you're talking about, we just got to support each other. That has to be a response, correct?
Sure.
And that's a response
Yeah, if
to
nobody ain't supporting us, we got to support each other.
we have to support each other. Like what was that? That's what that Tulsa Wall Street was built on, right?
Right, 1921.
But when times change, is it still necessary to have a Wall Street?
Right.
Have a Tulsa Wall Street, right?
And I hate to hog that, but so how do we change that? How do we evolve with what we're allowed to have now? You know what I'm saying? So is it that I'm still upset and I'll be upset with every race because a certain part of us was, discriminated against, right?
Right.
But now I can create a product that is not discriminated against because I invented it as a black man, but everybody just needs or wants it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So do I just hold back that product because of what happened way back when and not grow and be able to help other businesses?
Absolutely. When we come back, we're going to talk about we've got some good discussion here on Facebook. I'm definitely going to bring up what Pamela Jones said, and we're going to talk about the super soaker.
Yeah.
In
Gotcha.
in response to Pam and her comment there. That's on the next segment. So as we finish this off, we just want as we finish the first segment, we just want everybody to know that we are here to take your comments, your questions, your concerns, because this is something I don't think we've thought about a lot. I do know that this was a response, absolutely. Now, if we start to fix the problem, and one thing about it, do we? Are we able to circulate money into, it's saying that the money doesn't circulate enough times in a community.
Sure.
How do we fix that when we come back?
Up next, we have Sick of It by Skillet.
Sick of this.
Out of this mess.
That's how you.
Y'all feel free to think it.
Shouts out to Ice on the music on the music. DJ Ice.
Listen,
on the
he
one-
is always in the spirit.
I wanted to be careful with how I introed that one.
Absolutely, Joy. That's what I'm talking about, Joy. You better type all this. So it's Joy McLaughlin, who's an amazing business owner here. Check her out. Says so it's depending if you are a neighborhood business or or national business. If you focus on local areas, stay local. But if you are a national business, you choose the market that's going to give you most, which may not be in your local neighborhood or direct community. My mind goes beyond my local community, but I always give back to my local community.
Sure.
So.
That's cool.
In that situation, Mr. Libertarian, sir, the free market is supposed to make it so we don't have to make our neighborhood a charity venture, right?
Right. I mean, naturally, like ultimately, if you're talking libertarian outlook, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
Whether you want to languish and continue on however you're.
Oh, wow, that commercial break was short.
All right.
We're back, Freethinkers Radio, and you were talking about a libertarian outlook, Will?
Yeah, if you're taking a libertarian outlook with small business or nationwide business, the reality is you should be free to make the decisions you want, whether they're wise or unwise. If you want to make an unwise business decision, or you want to make a business that's maybe short-sighted, or it doesn't even have to be that. If you want to focus on just sustaining yourself as long as you live, or making enough money to get by, or concentrating in your local community or your neighborhood, or if you're concentrating on one particular area, you're free to do that.
Right.
But the reality is you also want to be free that if you want to grow your business, or if you have a vision for a business that will grow and exponentially grow, you want to be able to have the freedom to expand your markets.
And I can understand that on the individualistic standpoint, but how does that work with a connected community? You see what I'm saying? How does that work with a...
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And I think, going back, if you asked me this question maybe 4 or 5 years ago, my feeling would have been for most businesses, what you really got to do is go big or go home. That
Right.
you want to survive, you got to sell to as wide a market as you can. And when you're sourcing supplies and so forth, look as far as you can reasonably to get the best deal that you can, and all of that. And I think there's still something for that. I think where my thinking's maybe changed a little bit over the last few years, and especially when you look at some of the current political situation with backlash against trade agreements and so forth, a lot of this, I think, is standing in for a feeling that people feel like they've lost control of their communities, that their communities are just being affected by things that are huge and way beyond their control, and all of that. So I think what that tells me is that there's a demand out there for businesses that can build community. Now, that doesn't mean every business is able to do that, but
Right.
if I were to say go try to sell books online, I mean, I don't see how you compete with Amazon. But if you wanted to create a local community bookstore that actually have people in
Right.
book clubs and so forth, creating community with the business, I think there's room in there for
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's big. That's big. That was going to take us to the that's what was going to take us to the super soaker model, because of course that was created by a African American male in Atlanta, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you would, in his situation, he sold that sold that toward was that Hasbro? Who did he sell that?
Nerf.
Was it Nerf?
I think it was
Super
Nerf.
Soakers by Nerf?
Yeah.
Nerf.
Is
Okay.
it? Yeah.
So he sold that to Nerf instead of what some people seem to be pushing is to, get them. Okay, so if the money's going to circulate inside of your community, that means I got to sell Super Soakers to everybody in my community,
Right.
and then they have to reinvest somewhere that makes it back to me.
Right.
Or
And
All right.
what Joy said. I sell my super soakers to everybody. I don't care if they're in China. I don't care if they're in wherever, Taiwan, Beirut. But the way that I assist my community is not necessarily go out and I got to give to this one and I give to this one. Can I now have a store in my community
Right.
that I now employ people from my community, even though I sell here, and so they're helping to ship to China and to Taiwan and to the other places, and now they're a small part of the bigger model.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So when you talk about the free market, we got to look at where do we want to go?
That's
do you
it.
do you want to
That's
compete?
it.
Do you want to compete against Amazon, or do you want the little bookstore that catches everybody that before they go to work and get their coffee and read a book, or they want to come home or on lunch break?
Right.
So it depends on how we want to affect our community, because I think I'm more valuable if I had a higher tax bracket in my community than if I was just giving books out to
Right.
everybody that walks around.
Well,
I think-
that's social capital, right? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think that point's important. Miss Denise Bradley said a lot of it has to do with the mindset of the business owner, and that's extremely true. William, you're talking about the free market, and obviously in business you have the right and the freedom to decide how you want your business to operate, where you want your business to go, what you want it to do. And I feel like anybody who's going to start any form of any kind of business obviously would have some form of a mindset where they want their business to be successful in
Right.
some way or another. Now, for some people, that might mean, sticking in the community. And I think what Mr. Kevin just said was a great example as far as getting it to circulate through the community through starting the business within the community and employing those within the community. For some, that might be the better option. For some, the better option might be to just take it national or just take it international. I think a lot of it just depends on what it is you're trying to do. Because some people, and William, you said this earlier, some people might just be trying to maintain. They might not be
Right.
trying to have this multi-billion-dollar company. They might just want to make sure they can put food on the table for their family.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I guess in the context of big business and the overall economy, I guess that's where things get different. But at the same time, my question would be, how major is it for anyone starting a business to make the decision of whether they want to start a small business or begin a corporation for the sake of the greater good of the overall economy? Like, how important is it for people who's trying to start their business to make that decision, whether they want to just do the small business or big business?
Well, I think on the larger scale of things, where it's a situation where you're kind of trading social capital for economic capital in that situation.
Okay.
Because I would say one of the, I think back to times when there were a lot of storefronts in certain neighborhoods.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is.
There was social capital there. You see what I'm saying? There was the old guy who ran the comic book shop that all the kids would be at, and as a parent, you can always go to the comic book shop and go find.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You had the, all the different community events. Even the, some of the state, funded community things are now closing. I have no idea what's going on with that. Or the Richland County, a lot of the Meadow Lake Park and places like that aren't open as often as they used to be in those communities. Everybody can't afford a YMCA membership, but the thing is, I'm not trying to focus as much on the individual side because of course as an individual, I want to however many however much it takes to get all these customers in here, right?
Yeah.
But then as a community source, when we lose that social capital, does that social capital come back to cost our community? Later on, when you talk, maybe does that come back to cost us in our property value lowered because of the state of our children? Does it lower about does our property value low? Because the way that we take, what I'm saying, the way that we take care of things, the type of families now that are in our communities versus not in our communities, does that cause our neighborhoods to have lower value? I mean, does that cause our real estate to have lower value in that situation? That affects the economy of the entire community at that point, right? And so that's social capital.
But how do we plan our evolution of our communities? Because the way a community looked in the 1960s will not look that way in 1990 or 2000 and 2017.
Right.
So where is our forethought in how we transition this community as we start to see storefronts starting to close? What are we doing now? Right. What are we doing with those properties? Or are we just sitting there and waiting for another business to come, which we already see the trend is not going this way? What do we do? Technology plays the biggest role in most of this, right? So do we now take those and divide them up and create quad spaces for small businesses? Do we create more housing for people? We really need to look at how we need to evolve, and we gotta, and this should be up to our local politicians, because they're the most powerful politicians that we have, our local politicians,
right? Because
we can touch them. They know exactly what we need and that type of thing, right? And so, we talk about President Trump. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't lose any sleep the fact that he's the president, and I don't have anything necessarily against him. But what he's doing and saying right now is not going to directly affect me in the coming days, months, or a couple years here. But my local politicians, they can decide to close Two Notch Road and close Hardscrabble, and it will cause me all kind of havoc because I got to try to get out. Cost me time to get to my client. That cost me money. That you see how it, But so how are we planning to evolve our communities? And we really have to pay attention to this. And in the example you were using earlier about the big business versus the small businesses. Well, here's the cautionary tale that I learned going through to get my MBA. If you had the opportunity to have 10 small businesses or one big business, choose the 10 small businesses.
Why is that?
Why? If that big business, which we know has a life cycle, that big business goes out of business, what happens to the community? When you got 10, you have you stand a better chance of some of that 10, and then you can help evolve other businesses into the community. You see what I'm saying? So it's, when we talk about mindset, it's how we want this community to thrive. Do I just pick up and move and say I'm taking my business somewhere, or are we community minded to say we got to help this thrive? So I'm even recruiting businesses even as I do business.
Right. I get it. The way the internet is is having its way with us. The way the internet is having its way with us, I had to turn around and look at the time. It looks like it is actually. Okay, I can't say what the factor was that started the separation before, but households are becoming farther away.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
You see what I'm saying? Not in actual distance, but households, neighbors live farther away now.
Yeah.
Even if you're in an apartment, you live further away from your neighbor than you may have 10, 15 years ago. And that has everything to do with the internet. I don't know what started it before though. So that's what makes and you know, because a lot of what you're talking about when we talk about the golden age of what we call African American business, we're normally talking about civil rights movement, right? We're talking about pre-civil, well, pretty much we're talking about the 50s, right? We're talking about 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, up until, you know, X, you know, up until X and Black Panthers, and,
Yeah.
you know, CIA
Right.
and all that. But before that, we're talking about the golden age. And so what changed then, though, the only thing I can point to would be integration, though. Wouldn't that be the only, I mean, is there another factor you could think of that would have caused neighborhood or caused our houses to become more separated? Like, you know.
Yeah, and you and I know I've had this conversation with many an elder, and they feel, you know, that was the demise of, say, the African American culture, is when we, you know, segregated everybody.
Integrated everybody.
Integrated everybody, right?
Right.
And so to a old gentleman, almost to the man, you can go to them and they'll tell you that's when they point to that was the you know, beginning of the fall of the black community for whatever reason.
How? That's what I was just about to ask. How would keeping us segregated have made things better in the black community or in the white community, or like how does that work?
Well, because I think just because you only could buy black, so you know, you had no choice. You couldn't go buy anywhere else. So we could barely go use a public bathroom. So you know, it was you know, the only option that you had.
The difference between a small church and a large church, I would say, it's the connection value that you have with everyone that you see.
You know, it's also important to note that this exact same argument has been noted with the internet.
Yeah.
You know, that has been used time and time again. And before that, it was cell phones or phones. You know, I mean, it was just,
Absolutely.
you know.
We'll be right back, and we got a little more.
Feel free to think freely.
Up next, we have Can You Hold Me by NF featuring Britt Nicole. Feel free to think freely. Yeah, it's about to get real. Hey, Mom. Hey, Anita.
Yeah.
Pam had said it's about the cost to operate the parks. She said this goes back to money staying in the community through taxes.
Absolutely. So, and then she goes on to say property value is determined by schools and the types of stores. So, I mean, I guess how much of that neighborhood is controlled by commercial property versus residential property?
You got to have a balance. You know what I mean? But coding, of course, can play a big role in how you use. And, you know, a lot of the communities go to live-work communities.
Right.
And so you got that you know, adds a great balance to your business and your residential communities, because your business owners now live where their business is. So you kind of got that, you know, some of that balance there, and it won't necessarily be the same.
Yeah. You need the businesses there to begin with, though.
Right.
That's a big problem. Yeah, 'cause
Right.
when like you said, you're working in McCormick a lot, and
Yeah.
it's great to say that, you know, local government ought to be providing more, but
Right.
if they didn't get the tax revenue.
If the tax revenue is not there, I'm so sorry for you. You know, you know, we can send up all the prayers that you need, but it still comes down to having the dollars.
And we're back. What's up? So,
Going on, we got a question. This is and here is the question. So the question is, do white people support black businesses, and is that a concern? You mean for the
Yeah, like do because you guys are the only white guys here right now. I'm gonna have to ask this question.
Wait, who, me?
Yeah, you libertarian.
that's right.
Like, do you all ever like, well, just you two, do you look at the state of the black community, and does it move you to maybe do something? I know that you're a professor of economics. Like, does that move you to do something, or do you like support black businesses, or it just doesn't matter? You just support whatever the need is for you.
Well, I think, you know, the issue is always going to be you're going to have trouble drawing the average white person in just kind of out of sympathy. Is that, you know, you're going to have a good product that somebody needs. That's the downside of relying on a community to support the business is that you got to have the community there. You got to have the level of sympathy, and I don't know that for your average white person that's necessarily going to be there. Speaking personally, I used to live downtown on Main Street, and a lot of the businesses around were black businesses, and I would, out of convenience. I don't know it was necessarily a conscious plan, but they had something there that I needed. Yeah, certainly.
Most customers are convenience customers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so that's part of it. But I mean, if you've got residential segregation and so forth, the convenience aspect is going to be gone, obviously. So, but I think you mentioned segregation and sort of the time before that as the golden age of black businesses, and I think there's something to that, and I think this is part of the fundamental trade-off is that if you're in an enclosed community, on the one hand, there's a lot of strong community bonds and so forth that helps support, say, local businesses and whatnot. The downside is that as a customer, maybe I'm not always getting this stuff I want, or as good a quality or good a price or what you have. So you open it up, and suddenly there's a whole lot more options out there, and that's on one level that's great. On the other hand, there could be an issue with social capital there, and I think that's really kind of the big trade-off that you're seeing.
I want to comment too and say that ultimately, and this is kind of why I'm a libertarian. With capitalism, with the ability to buy and sell your goods, I'm free to choose for myself. If there's a business that's selling something, if there's a black business that's selling something that I don't have any need or want for, or if it's more expensive than another good that I can get somewhere else that might accomplish better or cheaper or more efficiently, there's really no incentive outside of some social or moral compulsion to do so, right? So ultimately on a large scale. And this is where I get into ideals. If you want to be a really good business, you want to grow. I mean, I think what we're seeing a lot with, I don't mean any condescension by this, because I think it's, so when we're talking about like a black community, businesses in a black community or black businesses as a whole, I think in the civil rights era, that was created because there was a vacuum there. It was created by need. There was a market there that was not being tapped. That's the beauty of economy, of capitalism. If there's a market that's not being tapped, if there's a supply, if there's a demand that isn't being met because people are being too racist or whatever, to actually go out and meet that need, it's going to develop. And so I think that's a big reason why that existed, and there was a definite purpose and beautiful thing in that. Nowadays, it's the same kind of thing where businesses can't just be, it's harder for businesses to compete with just like a local neighborhood when you've got businesses now that can use the internet to sell stuff worldwide. Right. On top of that, as a business, you want to grow. You don't want to limit yourself. So what I see, the classic quote used a lot of times is in the movie called Wall Street, greed is good. That's taken out of context a lot of times. But greed is good. You want to make money, right? You want to do better. The more you can create wealth, the better everything's going to be in the end. And so what you're seeing now is a lack of creativity, particularly with businesses. There's a market that hasn't been tapped. When we're talking about these communities that they got, property values are down, or maybe there's a lot of unused facilities, businesses that are like window shops that aren't being used or anything. I think that's a result of years of lack of creativity, of a reflection on traditional business practices that might have worked 20 years ago before the internet. It was really a big business opportunity.
Well, I don't know. 20 years ago, a good credit score would open that business, will open that storefront up for you. And I think there's less people in that community that can come in with a sort of down payment and a decent credit score. Things. I mean, you see what I'm saying? In those lower income neighborhoods, the people have found out how to put lights in their baby name. and stuff like that. So the child the child leaves the house. You know, they've been on their parents' credit since they were 14, and the credit's all jacked up. And so now they're 19. They didn't go to college. So now they're getting ready to, you know what I'm saying, they found an idea, and maybe they need a storefront, but who's going to give them the startup money? Where are they going to get the lending?
Well, you know, and part of that problem, Dave, is and in studying business, I study now more intently than I did before. When you start looking between 1991 and 1997, right, you're right. Credit scores at that time could allow you to open a business, but here's the biggest problem. They had a great idea, and they had a poor plan. Right? There was no scalable business. If they didn't open with the 1,000 customers that they needed and they only got 250, the business was not scalable enough to be able to survive, right? So great credit score, but it wasn't great after that. Right. And so now you had people building strip malls, and we see it in Columbia. It's strip malls everywhere. That's empty.
Yeah.
And that was because of that boom, because everybody between 91 and 97, almost everybody could start a storefront business. I don't care what it was. Right. But even the owners of these, you know, because they pre-sale them or they pre-lease them, right? Before they even bought, they're already leased out for 5 to whatever years. Here's what ruins that business owner, right? You just signed a 5-year lease and you were only in business for 6 months.
Right.
How do you get from under 4.5 years of a lien? You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. That's the educational part that they're not getting before they go into business. Right. You got to understand, you know, I'm opening the co-work that we always talk about. And the strength of a co-work is you crawl before you walk. You know, you don't go bite off more than you can chew. You don't have a storefront space at $800 a month, and you don't even know if you have $800 of revenue coming in. Wow. You know what I mean? So it's the forethought. It is the preparation. It is the planning and knowing how to survive in the marketplace.
Absolutely. We got a question here that, we putting this one out here. Kamani Casino Davis, who Casino is his middle name, so that's cool. Isn't there a bigger issue with business growth being contingent upon access to capital? Do you feel like whites, even immigrants, find it easier to obtain capital, and why?
I think part of it you just said. We kind of ruin ourselves even before we get going in a lot of instances. But to his point, just say, for instance, I'm just a guy that graduated high school, went to college, got some experience, got on the job, right? And so now I have enough knowledge to where I want to go to open that business. If I didn't save, right, if I didn't build my credit, it's highly unlikely that my family is going to be able to help me. And I'm just speaking from the perspective of a black guy. There's highly unlikely that a lot of people in my family's going to help me. So here's the deal now is I have to put together the best plan to present to an investor. Right? Because this is the part a lot of us don't understand is a lot of take for instance Donald Trump. A lot of ventures that he's had, he didn't put up all of the money. You know what I mean? He presented an idea to this guy, and they gave him $10 million. He gave him $5 million. He gave him $3 million. He gave him $6 million. And but the camaraderie and the belief that he could, you know, take that business idea and evolve it is where that came from.
Exactly.
Now, does his confidence in being able to do that come from familiarity, and is that a categorization? I mean, is that a problem? Does that come back to what we're talking about here? Does that come back to the fact that he felt like he could get it from? You know,
I think that a lot. I think as far as Donald Trump goes, I would imagine that a big part of the reason why he was able to do a lot of what he was able to do is because he did one thing, and that worked out one way or another, and people saw that. And I guess with certain things that he's done in the past that worked out, enough people were like, okay, he might be on to something with whatever this next thing is. If this worked out in the past, then we can take a risk on him. You know, and I think that might have something to do with
And
it.
we
I
know
think-
his father had wealth, right?
Yeah,
We know his
yeah.
father had wealth. That adds to the credibility. You're going to think a person's more credible with your finances if you feel like they've had wealth. If they've had
Exactly.
something before versus a person who obviously has never had money like that.
They've
before,
seen his
right?
name before. There was something recognizable. There was something that was trustable, apparently.
So you're talking about generations of wealth that led to that, and I guess that's
Well-
the disadvantage for a person who doesn't have that. I'm sorry, Professor. You,
Oh, yeah,
you
well,
want to
I-
say something?
Yeah, I don't know if we
Right.
want to get off on this tangent or not, but yeah, he actually lost a good chunk of his money
Man, oh, yeah.
late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
Yeah, his casino business pretty much all went belly up.
Oh yeah.
Since then, I think, what he's really done to get by is that he basically turned his name into a brand.
Brand.
He puts very little of his own money up on any of his businesses. He
Yep.
just kind of licenses his name to lots of stuff, and that's where he gets most of his revenue nowadays.
Wow.
Yeah,
It
this
takes a
dude.
lot of power to start to do that. You think about that. He's selling his name.
Yeah.
You can't. That's that's reusable energy.
Well, you have to. And I was gonna say before we went off on that, I personally I do not think Donald Trump is a great businessman. I just want to let everybody know I've researched this guy for a very long time, for a lot of years, because as we were growing up in the 70s and the 80s, we related Donald Trump to just money, just this
Right.
guy just being. But as I,
Still do.
yeah. So when I started traveling the world in the military and seeing stuff, and I started looking at this guy, I'm like, wait a minute, he's not the brightest business guy by no means.
Yeah, I read the Art of the Deal. He had some things. Basically Ron Cook, old money and name branding.
Yep.
Yep. You put those together, but it's hard to say no to a person who comes in the game with that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Your name is good in these streets, and I'm adding to something you already have going on. I think that's something that a lot of investors don't like
So-
from millennial
Right.
businesses that come up. They always have to give you more than you came to the table with.
What do we associate that with in the black community when we just talk about a name that just carries so much weight? Jordan.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Jordan,
know,
the Jordan brand.
Think about the
Absolutely.
Jordan brand. It is probably in the black community. It is probably the most strongest brand. Everybody talk crap about Jordan, and they wearing Jordans. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
It is his name
Got
and
the
that
babies
brand.
wearing Jordan.
Yeah, it is just huge.
And Jordan also believed is not on that it's just local community thing.
No.
He's never been for that.
No.
Feel free to think freely.
Up next, this is Sally Mayback by D1.
This is a cool song. I'm sorry. This is a song about somebody paying off their student loans. Y'all better get with it. Straight up. You act like who can't dance to that? If you can't dance to somebody paying back them loans be with you forever.
I'm going to dance to it once I pay mine.
I'm trying to tell you. I just sent Sally Mae a forbearance. Forbearance. I mean, I had to make that song. 6 months. Hey, I'm just saying. Shouts out to D1. He did an amazing job at Family Fest, and whoever that guy was that was talking all that noise said he was a pastor. I was there for the fact that the guy could not name what church he was the pastor of when asked by a person he should have been able to
That's awkward.
answer that question to. So anyways, I'm not even thinking about it.
Was that hustling backwards?
That would have been, but we ain't doing hustling backwards today.
That is good. That's a good question right there, man. I talk about that question all the time, Murphy.
Ooh,
All
right.
the
Insurance
time.
one?
All the time.
The insurance one?
Yeah. I talk about that
Absolutely.
all
the time.
Feel
Yeah.
free to think freely. We are Freethinkers Radio. We are back, and we are talking about economic empowerment. We are talking about racism. We're talking about we're just having a great conversation. You need to chime in. And we do have a question on Facebook. It says, is life insurance, understanding budgets, credit, stocks, bonds, and investing is it newer to black community than others?
Maybe not budgets, right?
Some.
Maybe not
Some
budgets.
of those things.
Some. You know, my father got killed in 1992 by a drunk driver, and my dad had a GED, but he had 7 insurance policies when he died. Right. His goal was for my mother to never have to work another day in her life. His goal, which he told us, was not to make us rich, My goal is not to spoil you because I'm not here to protect you. So something to help you get started.
Right.
But he'll let you know my primary goal was to make sure my wife didn't need anything else. And so that taught me a lot about insurance. It taught me a lot about the savings bonds. I mean, my dad had a G. I mean, he was just super smart guy. He just believed he was smarter than his teachers for a long time.
Right.
But just having stocks, having bonds, and the first time my mom told me I had to take her to the bank because one of the bonds was about to expire. And I'm like, bonds? I was like, Mom, y'all never talked to me about this.
Right.
And she was like, well, me and your dad talked about it a lot because he had a friend who was a financial advisor. He used to be on Wall Street, but then got kicked off Wall Street because he was drunk. And black men when they come back and they'll tell you everything after they lost the job.
Yeah, they
He didn't tell him anything when he was working on Wall Street trying to make him rich, but he did. He talked to him about family planning. And that's something my dad passed on to me about family planning. Now, he didn't tell me about the stocks and bonds. I learned that later. But he talked to me about insurance and how term and whole life. And I'm sitting there like a deer in headlights, like, dude, what are you talking about? Either they give you a check when you die or not. No, wait a minute. In some insurance can be income. We talked about money, having investment money. Sometimes it's a way of you doing that, and of course you got to pay it back and this type of thing. But it's a lot of ways we can do it, but we got to educate ourselves. And we got a lot of people in all of our communities who are very well versed in this information.
Absolutely.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
because I've never had a conversation with anybody about that. Not in my family, not around my family.
Me either.
And that's so real. I mean, for a lot of people that I interact with, they just getting to the point where they understand cash.
Yeah.
You talking about credit?
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? You talking about stocks? How am I supposed to understand the evaluation?
Wow.
How am I supposed to evaluate this? What do you mean? What return are you talking? You see what I'm saying? I understand cash to the point where as complex as the most complex it gets in my neighborhood is. Hey, let me borrow $100. I'll pay you $110 back. You see what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
I ain't never heard nobody put some interest on it.
Oh yeah, you ain't grew up in my neighborhood.
Well, yeah. Well, come
Black folks.
I
with
was in
integrity.
Germany.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Right away. Yeah, you get that
Germany.
interest, bro.
Get that interest down.
Yeah, you give me $110 back.
That's
man,
right.
Man, I heard you need, $200. You know what I'm saying? Pay that off right there. Maybe make sure I get $250 back.
That's right.
Wow,
You know what I'm saying?
that's wild.
So that's how they use cash, right?
Yeah.
But they're using cash as lenders.
Right.
They don't understand what percentage they're talking about
Right.
or anything like
Right.
that. But that's how they understand cash.
Right.
So if they're going to invest in think about explaining to somebody who just learned how to use cash, how you invested in Google and how it split. Think about that. I mean, just try it. Try that out. Just go a friend who just, all they've ever done is, cash money. Hey, I got $200. I'm going to the mall. You know what I'm saying? Take that person and say, hey, I put, I paid $175 for, 20 years ago, I paid $175 for 10 stocks of Google. It split.
That's right.
What that mean?
What
Right?
Exactly.
That's what I was wondering.
So in that case, you can't, you can't expect a person to put in a system they don't understand how to get their returns or whether they got their proper returns.
And we had it in our community and we didn't even know it was there. I'm gonna give you a great example of it. We all watched Good Times growing up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Remember watching Good Times? But one of the smartest guys that was on that show was Sweet Daddy.
Absolutely.
Sweet Daddy was the one who lent out the money, but he gave us so many. He dropped so many superlatives on people all the time, talking about you get this, you gotta give me my money. Hey JJ, I love you.
Right.
I love you, but I didn't give you this. I gave you this, and this is what I got to get back.
Right.
He gave so many examples of it, but we were just so caught up in the entertainment part of it that we didn't see the education part of it. It was there, and so go back and look at those shows and look at how I think one of them was Barbershop, the movie with Ice Cube.
Yeah.
And so the guy gave him what was it, $10,000 or whatever it was.
Right.
No, I don't want it. I gave him $10,000. Oh no. I need $20,000.
Exactly.
He's like, what? You just gave it to me.
Nah,
That's
you
a
took
whole,
it.
Whole nother example of what we're talking about. So you got a few people in pockets who had this information, but then they twisted it to where I just added a few more zeros to the interest, and so that's how he handled it. But it was there. We just didn't know how to pick and choose and how to find that information.
So how do we get? Well, I think we're a little bit far from where we started. But how do we get minority communities into? First of all, yeah, Professor, should we even get into stock? Has that ship sailed? Is the stock market still a valuable place to invest money now in 2017?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's still a good place to put your money as long as you're not expecting to get rich overnight. Yeah, I mean, it's if you're willing to put the money in and wait for a while and so forth, you're almost always going to make money on stocks.
When you say wait for a while, like what are you talking?
I'm thinking like, if you want to retire 20, 30 years from now.
Oh, that's a long while.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not a good place if you want to put money in today and think, you're going to get a whole lot on money, double your money in the next month or something like that. Yeah, it's just not going to work that way unless you take some really big chances.
So it's a saving tool. It's not really an
it's a
investment
savings tool.
tool.
It's not a get rich tool, but I mean, it's a savings tool. Yeah, I'll put it that way. Yeah. If you see it that way, it's almost always a good idea.
Cool.
So then, when we talk about like, I've heard this is what I heard. I heard someone was saying that maybe it's not a new phenomenon, but something that's becoming more popular is private lending, where you say you need let's say you need $50,000 for a business. You can get 10 people in the room, $5,000 apiece.
Talking about angel investors?
Angel investors, right? That's becoming more and more popular outside of so people that would have normally put more into the stock market back when the stock market was moving a bit more. Now these people are becoming angel investors. Is that what's going on now?
Well, and the only reason that happened is because the financial market tightened up for a while, and they changed. They raised the credit scores. They weren't doing a whole lot of lending, right? So this came out of necessity. And you got a whole bunch of guys that had money, and they saw a way to get 20, 30, 40% on some of this, and then some of them lowered it. You got some guys who didn't care so much about risk, a lot of them. But when that happened, it was usually a great idea, and they lent you money on 8-10%, but in about 12 months, and you get ready to kind of pay it back, and they say, well, look, you know what we'll do is we want to offer you to buy in 10, 15, 25% of your business. We want to give you X amount of money. Well, if you had a great idea, you should start getting nervous because they're trying to leverage themselves to take your business.
Wow.
Right? On a low interest rate, right?
Absolutely.
That's usually what that end up looking like. So on a higher rate, they feel like some of them feel like you're gonna pay it back, and it's just money they can get back interest and lend out to somebody else and just keep going.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, this is part one. We're gonna have to continue some of this stuff here, Professor. We appreciate you coming on with us.
Glad to be here.
It's went a lot of directions. I did definitely. We never really said whether or not it was the best idea. I guess it's an idea, right? Because if you make something that has a code that's only for a certain, if you have limited your plan, then focus on your market, right?
Right.
If your plan is bigger, focus on your bigger market. I think that's where we ended there. Yeah, this show did go by very fast.
Really fast.
Check us out on demand on YouTube, on Facebook, on Periscope, on iTunes, on Google Play. This show should be up Friday.
As he looked at Darren.
Yeah, this show should be up Friday on iTunes podcast. And this isn't our last one. We're going to take on a lot of things. We were going to. Richard Spencer had a video that we were going to address today. We decided to stick to the script. We're sticking to the script, but we will come back to it.
Yes,
we don't leave that kind of stuff
that will not be untouched.
Right.
That will not be untouched.
Yeah, we will be touching that. We'll be touching that. Absolutely. Ebony?
Hey,
Good?
I'm good. I'm taking it all
James,
in,
you good?
thinking about some things.
I think it was the conversation about small business.
Shouts out. Will came dressed up today.
Yeah,
Her with the pink power tie.
We got to talking money and it just got me.
That's it. That's it. Turn it up. Turn it up. Professor, we thank you for joining us today.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Mr. Rasberry.
Hey, I'm just happy to see that the numbers kept going up with people coming in and listening, man. This is really good.
Yeah, we're gonna inspire people to get educated about certain things. Last year we made everybody get educated about politics. This year we need to get everybody educated about economics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
What does that credit rating really mean? You know.
All these eggs.
Yeah, what's that 6 months and 8 months they're talking about? Well, just wait 6 months for what? What does that mean? You know, I just bought a car. Why is my credit so low? You know, we need to figure that stuff out and make sure that we get to the point where that's being passed down from parents, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it seems now that's not passed down from parents. That's something you have to go to the workshop and get now.
Yep.
We need to change that. And
Education's
hopefully,
everything, man.
Yeah.
hopefully we're able to change that this generation. Internet, let's do this thing.
That's right.
Yes.
Until next week, feel free to think freely. We out.
Yes.
Later.
Come on.
There's still room.
There's still room. Facebook Live, thank you for tuning in. Share this with everybody you think needs to be informed and inspired to learn about economics.
Thank you for listening, Miss Marie.
Absolutely, and there's some great comments on here. Go back and
Thanks for listening,
go
Mom,
back and check
Grandma,
out all this, man. Cause this is real. I'm about to go back and go through the comments myself. But we out.
Peace out.
His love is open to all. His arms are open.